Ladies and gentlemen, we've got another fantastic pair in here, two wonderful airports that I've had personal experience of visiting and working in. So our first guest is Ken Ryan, who's Director of Cargo for Rockford International Airport in Chicago. So Ken, lovely to have you on board.
Oh, thanks. Thanks.
Appreciate it. And joining Ken is Mario Patyk, who's Head of Business Development, Cargo Logistics. And at this moment in time, we will say Leipzig, Halle Airport, but he's actually responsible for three elements, which I'm sure we'll slot into the conversation as we start up. Gents, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The subject matter of the ACHL digital event is from crisis to care. So we're just sort of exploring how the whole community cares, and then we've got the genuine collaboration and initiatives, which is the way we'll all get out of these very trying times. So now, what I'd like to do, just to introduce you to the audience, so if you can both just let me know what your main responsibilities are and what personal challenges have you experienced during this last 4 to 5 months. So Mario, if you want to kick it off, and you can also explain the three elements of your responsibilities within that, I'm sure.
Not that difficult, to be honest. Thank you very much for the introduction. Pleasure to be here. Yes, I'm working for a holding company which is called Mitteldeutsche Flughafen AG. We consist of 3 companies, 2 airports. One is Dresden International, second one is Leipzig Halle Airport, and our handling agent who resides at both airports, named Portground. Now, at Leipzig Halle Airport, we are a truly cargo-focused airport, just like our friends in Chicago Rockford. We operate 24/7, of course, and we're home to the biggest express hub in DHL's global network. So for us, cargo pretty much continued as normal. Challenges were more on the passenger side. We do have passenger traffic as well, but that's more on a regional basis, I would say, but also connecting to international hubs of major airlines. But in regards to cargo, not very much used to me, to be honest, as I'm trying to develop cargo services, trying to give a platform to our stakeholders to do cargo business via our airport, increase their business. So I'm interested in anything that we can push through in terms of air cargo through our airport. And challenges for us in the company was that, of course, on the passenger side, we lost a lot of business, and people did go into a furlough scheme. Whilst on the cargo side, everything was, after a short lull, really ramping up again. And actually to levels that we hadn't seen this year before the pandemic. So that was a bit challenging to get colleagues from all the 2 airports, also from Dresden International Airport, support our cargo activities in Leipzig, which was sorted out quite quickly and it went out smoothly. So we could really ensure a very good, smooth operation and deal with new type of aircraft or cargo aircraft, which were the passenger aircrafts with seats removed, which was quite a sight. And these had to be unloaded very quickly and be very it was a learning curve to do that, but we learned quite quickly, so we're able to handle quite a few of these flights.
Yeah, the old praetors, as they've been known, that's going to be a new term and a new memory for a lot of people after all of this. So thanks very much for that intro, and Ken, over to you.
Yeah, I was hired about 13 or 14 years ago by the airport. They recognized, RFD recognized that they really had no car, in spite of the fact that they were the second largest hub in North America for UPS. In terms of other cargo, they really had no experience whatsoever. All their experiences as an airport was seeking passenger services. I came from the cargo industry, and somebody recommended me. I came up, took the job, loved it. I loved it because it was a difficult job because I had my own opinions about Rockford, which were arrogant and ignorant. I didn't understand what was going on and what just how fabulous an airport this was in terms of its capabilities for cargo, until I got up here and toured it, and I came back and met with the people several times. At that point, I came on board, and it was a very wise decision, not just to hire me, but to hire a cargo guy.
Yeah.
So during my tenure here, I've been the director of business development, but I've essentially gone to a semi-retired version, taking care just of cargo, and that's what I do for the airport. I have been working for our overnight success has taken 13 years. Yeah. We have truly been working and investing millions of dollars into the airport to support cargo and e-commerce.
Yeah. Which,
go ahead.
Okay, I'm sure it was a wise decision, Ken. I'm sure it was.
Yeah, right. And glad I keep telling them that.
Yeah, and glad you love it up there. And I love that saying, overnight success took 13 years.
Yeah, yeah. But here's the thing, you were asking about the difficulties. One of the issues that's occurred right now as a result of COVID are actually multitude of issues. But what you had was uncontrolled, unexpected demand in cargo, not planned for in the whole cargo industry around the world. And by the way, a sudden lack of demand for passenger service. I mean, it just went dead. Yeah. So these are not things you can really plan very well for. So much of our difficulty happened as because all the buildings and all of the investments we'd made, they're all been taken. Yeah. And suddenly there was a demand for more buildings, and we are in fact in the process of building another 100,000 square feet at the moment. But because there's a demand for it, we know it's already taken, and we're looking at another 100,000 beyond that. So in the meantime, we've had to punt. Oh, let me just get rid of that. I apologize. I have a phone going on, and I can't get it to stop.
Don't worry.
Sorry about that.
Don't worry.
My
don't worry.
apologies.
That's live. That's probably somebody.
I'm going to turn it. I'm going to turn it way down now. So yeah. So my apologies.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
Where were we?
You were on the second 100,000 square foot and demand.
Yeah. So we're in the process of building that. We know that that's already going to be taken. We have another 100,000 that we're going to add to that. This is all for cargo and for what e-commerce. Yeah. You know, and I distinguish between the two.
Yep.
So in the meantime, we've managed to convert a couple of hangars, fairly big hangars, into cargo facilities that we're operating today. And we've had to we lost a handler who used to handle Amazon, but Amazon took over its own handling. And the result was a company here by the name of Emery, nothing to do with the old Emery Air Freight, made a decision they would like to get into this business, invested, hired trained personnel, and got up and running. And we're currently running scheduled services from Germany in here, and we're expecting those to grow. So that's along the way, just a couple of things that we're.
No, very good. Thank you both. Now, you both mentioned in your introductions there about how you're both focused on cargo. And I think now more than ever, I mean, nobody could ever imagine that cargo would take such a high profile and priority amongst our industry and get so much recognition, which it's done. And I think quite rightly so, because far too often, just like in the health with doctors and nurses and frontline staff, everybody forgot how important these things that you take for granted are. And we keep the world going, we supply the world, and it's a hugely important area. But you also both mentioned e-commerce, which has gone crazy. Now, what I'd like to ask both of you for your opinions, and we'll start with you, Mario, is as an airport, and you two have got probably a much better advantage, but as an airport, do you feel that airports can now, more than ever, start to have a major influence on our business by being real leaders within their own community and ecosystem, and introduce certain elements that people might not have thought that airports would have been driving or would have been interested in. So how do you think on that, Mario?
Twofold, yes. On one hand, I would agree with you. We definitely gained some more exposure, especially on the political side, but also during the pandemic, it was in the news, and that really is valid for quite a lot of airports. If I speak about Europe and Germany, definitely Frankfurt, Munich, Cologne, and we were in the news as vital airports to keep up the supply chain. So during the pandemic, or when it was at its height in Europe, we definitely earned a lot of more positive reputation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not so sure, or maybe it depends on who you're talking to. People outside of the industry, to get their full acceptance really depends on their subjective views and where they live. There may be communities living close to major airports who will still complain about the noise and not make that link to the next order they put on online and expect to be there the next day. So I think this is the big challenge. In my view, airports could probably do more, and the associations of which they are part, to maybe outline well, the importance to the economy. They've been doing that, but maybe at the same time addressing the environmental impact or initiatives that they may be doing. So in that sense, yes and no. I'm sorry, I can't give you a clear answer on this.
It's okay, it's okay. And where I'm thinking, I've been speaking to several parties and airports and organisations. Some of the airports have been saying that some of the GHAs or some of the organisations, they're very strict with the PPE and the rules and the guidelines, whereas others leave it up to the interpretation of scientific information, etc. Now, everybody knows that masks make a difference.
Yeah, they do.
The World Health Organization and governments who had their heads in a dark place at the beginning, giving people incorrect information, was ridiculous. So some of the governments now, and even just today, excuse my language, but Boris has found his balls, and they've actually been very precise with simplifying directions, because too many people with too many options causes too much confusion. And
true. That's true. Yeah.
What I'm saying is, rather than the carrot and the stick or the dusty feather implementation, I think it's all about baseball bat time now, because there will be a second wave. It's going to be different, and people need to be clear. And I think if airports start to show the clarity, i.e. anybody working in, visiting or traveling to, from or via our airport, these are the guidelines you have to comply with, and this is what will happen if you don't.
I agree.
That's what I'm saying. Airports now, I think more than ever, have got the chance to be very, very, very clear, because as a passenger or as anybody using an airport, if you don't understand what the rules are, you're going to fall foul of something. So that's what I'm saying, Mario, as far as, you know, can you be more decisive? Should you be more decisive? And do you want to be more decisive?
Well, in regards to passenger traffic, we are. We implemented all of these processes. Passenger flights have picked up again from Leipzig Halle Airport, and we're very strict on that everybody's following the process and procedures. But also when it comes to cargo operations, there are certain points where people are supposed to wear masks, keep a distance. So we're very vigilant on that as well.
Okay, good. And Ken?
You know, I think one of the things that I found annoying along the way was the number of CEOs of companies, and that was in and out of our industry, who threw out their opinions about what and what should not happen. You know, we should have our airlines go, people can fly without any danger or whatever it is. We are not the scientists.
Yeah.
We need to listen to the scientists, and we need to act. And you made the statement earlier. There is no doubt about the value of masks as a simple, the most simple of examples.
Yeah.
Of value of masks. So as an airport, we are responsible for it, and it's not all easy, by the way, for making certain that people abide by the law. Now it is the law.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but part of that requires us, for example, in the passenger terminal, because we still have some passenger flights, although they're not not nearly as many. How we have the passenger terminal marked, you know, stay apart, making certain everyone who walks in there, including staff, are masked. And the same thing goes as exactly as Mario had said, the same thing on the ramp, handling cargo aircraft. And that was not the way it was initially when we got going. We were a little bit less worried about it in the very beginning, but we very quickly came around to understanding the necessity to really, in a way, it's a patriotic thing in some way, to do the right thing and not infect your fellow travelers.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. So there is, and one other thing is, we on the question you were talking about, taking the lead, we have made a change in terms of our real estate.
Yeah.
In how do we focus now? In the total amount of real estate we have, only 1/3 of that is inside the fence. We have another 2/3 outside the fence. Not all of it 100% usable, but a lot of acreage out there.
Yeah.
And we have engaged a company that specializes in dealing with manufacturers and distributors. This is a global real estate company with global real estate reach, who already have many of the customers. And we're not talking about air freight customers specifically. We're not talking about the air freight forwarder. Why? I can get to the air freight forwarders. Yeah, I can get to the airlines, but I know nothing about the commercial global real estate demand and what. So we have engaged this company to look specifically for those that would be interested in being close to an airport such as Rockford. Because of all of the e-commerce, that's, you know, e-commerce has boomed as a result of COVID. I'm not certain it's ever going to go back. I'm really not. So then the question is, what other companies would like to be close to those type of operations? You know, with the UPS and Amazon here. So that's an area where we've given the need to the experts and the expertise we don't have on the inside.
Yeah, and both of you have got experience, and you're able to refer to the e-commerce boom that you've seen now, especially over this last 5 or 6 months. It's not going to stop, and too many people, even the ones who are anti-e-commerce, they're all getting used to it now, and it's a matter of how big and how fast is it going to grow. But airports like yourselves, who've got the space around, you've got the opportunity to develop, you've got the opportunity to control the congestion issues, you've got all those positives. This is an incredible opportunity for airports like yourselves.
Yeah,
definitely. So I'm not sure if I can pitch in, but I will. Most definitely. We've seen during the pandemic, especially with the PPE shipments, those PPE shipments really required the speed, the 24/7 operations, the cut and red tape as well, and really fast and smooth processes. And typically airports which really focus on cargo and which are also home to integrators, such as Rockford and such as Leipzig, Halle, really helped keeping the supply chain going. And e-commerce is all about speed. It is about speed and fast processes, but also being able to deal with those smaller packages. I think we all come from the general cargo side, where we're used to nice, bigger packages, shipments, which can lift with a forklift very easily. Now we are dealing a lot more with these smaller items, and they have to go through really, really fast. So for us, I mean, 2006, I think, was the year when DHL started at Leipzig with express shipments. It's right down the alley anyways. And so everything is geared up for that. And I think the airports which can offer that speed, those smooth processes, which are willing to do that, which really want that type of business, they're the ones who can really benefit from this e-commerce boom, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Ken?
You know, well, basically, I'm in agreement with 100% of what Mario said. We are fully engaged in the development of e-commerce, but we are cautious to remember that it isn't just e-commerce. For example, the PPE is coming in big freighters on big pallets, etc. So we have actually been more successful in e-commerce than we have in the big freighters.
Yeah.
So it's lately, now although we do get the larger freighters in, they've always been occasional. Now we have our first scheduled ones and a lot more occasional. And the interesting thing about that is that we have been contacted by more, and this is exciting for me, air freight forwarders. The number one problem for airlines who wished years ago to come to Rockford was that air freight forwarders felt that, oh my God, you're not going to be right at O'Hare. The freight is going to, it could be delayed. Now, in every test flight, we had 13, for example, test flights from Nippon Cargo Airlines. And that they were on days when Nippon had 2 flights, one into ORD and the other one into RFD on the same day. So in each case, we were down to O'Hare and available to the customers 4 hours faster than the O'Hare operation.
Yeah.
So even when we could prove that, the forwarders remained skeptical. But that seems to have gone away. Large and small forwarders are contacting us if not on a daily basis, several times a week, looking to bring flights into Rockford and so on and so forth. So it's a fabulous change, just exactly as you had said, Chris, that it has changed. But the other truth is that we have been going to visit them for 13 years. We've been telling them we're here for 13 years. So they are, you know, we haven't gone away. And now they're thinking this makes sense.
But it's amazing now how some of the changes have been from this crisis catalyst, and now people are looking at all of the benefits, efficiencies, because they've got to keep costs down, they've got to look after different things. And Mario, what you said as well about having a 24/7 airport operation with no curfews and all the other restrictions, all those things now are coming in the choice, and they're coming in the risk assessments that people are having to take into account for their business. So
and also, by the way, forgive me, Mario, I didn't mean to jump in on you, but there's another aspect which is becoming more and more important, which is carbon footprint. When you're talking about coming into an airport, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for Leipzig, but you're coming into RFD, you're not vectored around. We have independent airspace. You have direct in approaches. You have 5 minutes from wheels down to engines off. Same thing in reverse going out. The reduction in carbon footprint is massive over a period of a year for a single flight.
Yeah. I just want to ask you both now, one of the things that I've seen, which is quite surprising, but it's also enlightening, is these league tables now that are comparing airports based on health regime and whether they're complying with directions for COVID. But what I'm not seeing yet is like a profile or a USP of airports with, you know, congestion times, flow times, carbon footprint benefits. Do you think that's something that should start to be published to make people more aware of certain airports that were, shall we say, overlooked or only considered in certain circumstances? Mario?
I think it could help. On the other hand, there has been another fundamental change with the lack of belly capacity.
Yeah.
So passenger flights, which are not there anymore. And the biggest cargo airport last year, and has been for a while, is Frankfurt. And about 50% of cargo was transported in those in the belly of those passenger flights.
Yeah.
This has fundamentally changed, and that forces everybody in the business to look at other airports, airports which are more, maybe airports which offer a lot more cargo-focused services as well, and maybe spreads the business a little bit to other airports as well. So that is one fundamental change. So having a league table, which then gives us an overview of congestion times and or airports which are easy to deal with, where there is no problem getting slots, which operate 24/7, where customs is there 24/7 as well, could help really raise the awareness. And to me, it's an interesting change. I started my career also in Frankfurt, early 90s, and I look, if you work in Frankfurt, you're at that time and up to quite recently, I think you've been very, very comfortable. And same as working at Heathrow, for example, or Chicago O'Hare. This is where the business is. You can see it. You see all the forwarding agents. You have flights going in and out. It's very international. And especially around the noughties, the beginning of 2000, 2001, airports like Leipzig, Halle never existed in my mind. Although I was born in the city, I didn't even know we had an airport, to be honest.
Yeah.
And Leipzig only came on the map through DHL when they decided in 2004 that they're going to move away from Brussels. And that completely changed the momentum over here as well. And I think now is a similar point where forwarding agents, not sure about the shippers. I think the shippers at the moment, they're not the main decision makers here. But I think forwarding agents seem to charter a lot more aircraft as well, and also take it into their hands in terms of how logistics works. But don't forget all those big e-commerce players who start transporting and delivering goods as well.
Yeah.
So, sorry, coming back to your question, yes, I think it would help.
Yeah. Okay. And Ken? Thanks, Mario.
Yes, I do. I think it's becoming more and more important, and I think it's becoming more important from the point of view of the air freight forwarder selling the customer, because many of those customers are aiming to reduce their carbon footprint, and every ton that they can save is something that they're interested in. So I believe that forwarders are going to need to begin to be able to show some of that to those direct customers. And all the more reason why something like you suggested, Chris, might be very useful for airports such as RFD.
Yeah. I agree. Can I ask you both another? This is just a wild one, but if you look at the way the airports now are focused, and you look at the practical sizing of carriers, so there's a reduction. There's a need now for more equipment to be stored because there's a surplus of equipment. Also, people are looking to cut their costs, reduce their assets. Do you think there's a possibility that airports might start to offer centralized services or pooling of equipment with some IT support that can forecast and designate who gets what equipment at what time and how it's being used, and work out preventive maintenance, etc.? So if you imagine now an airport was responsible for all the SME, NME, various other equipment, if it had the pallet utilization and deliverables to the flights, etc., to the warehouses that were needed, do you think there's an opportunity for airports to get into that sort of centralized so it reduces the amount of overall cost for the industry?
I'm not really sure about that. It may work, and I certainly believe. Look, I know that over the years that I've been in this industry, airlines had been willing to share equipment. If you had something that broke down, you could go to the other airline, and they'd give it you a loaner to get you out of trouble. If you suddenly had a need for a 30,000 pound forklift, there was typically one airline on the whole airfield that had a 30,000 pound forklift, and they would be gladly lend it to you. So there was, and I think there remains great cooperation from that perspective. But then what you have is you know, a lot of handling companies, for example, that are hugely competitive one to another. And the question is, how do you get them to deal with each other that way? In our case, just as in Mario's, we have one handling company, Emery, but when they've run into an issue with a piece of equipment, we've been able to go to UPS.
Yeah.
And UPS has been happy to basically lease us for the few hours, that piece of equipment. So that does go on here. And I think when you've got the uncontrolled situation as we're in today, where suddenly there can be a massive need, and how do you invest for the long term on something that you don't know is going to
that's exactly why I was saying.
So your idea in terms of everybody sharing makes absolute sense from that perspective, because suddenly you're not going to be stuck with millions of dollars worth of GSE hanging around with no work.
Exactly. And our industry has always been margin challenged, no matter which way you look at it. And, and it's also been somewhere that, certain parties in the supply chain are the ones who are stuck with all the assets and the investment. So what do you think, Mario?
Well, I think it would probably be limited to the ecosystem of that particular airport, I presume. Similar to what Ken said, our biggest client is DHL, and they do their own handling, their own ramp handling, but there are bits and bobs where port ground, our GHA also supports DHL, and that could be some handling. Could also mean that we're giving a hand and giving out GSE equipment and vice versa. So I think if parties are really close to one another in one ecosystem platform, that's very likely. Do you need a company to pool that? Maybe it's too early. Your idea is too early, but if I think about it, it does make sense. It would make sense to keep overall costs down. But then again, if I look at airports with more handling agents, a bit more fragmented services, that's quite a challenge to overcome that. Although they may have air cargo communities, but I think it's still a long way. And you definitely will need it is during times when there is a lot more cargo and a lot more flights coming in, like the PPE equipment. And now we're sort of looking at a looming vaccines distribution charter, additional flight traffic as well, which, well, at the moment, nobody knows if that's going to be even higher and larger than the one we recently had. But this is life-saving equipment, and that it shouldn't go without saying that people support each other at airports, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. Now, you just touched on vaccines. Can I ask you both, are you involved? Are you already discussing? Are there bodies, representative bodies that are including you in the assessment of capability of vaccine handling, whether it comes in frozen, whether it's 2 to 8, whatever it is, but actually assessing the capability of the airport to receive or send, to store, and also to transport? Are you guys looking at that now already?
If I may start, Ken. Yes, at Leipzig Halle Airport, Port Ground has been CIB certified at the beginning of the year. Seems like a long time ago now. They achieved their certification and now has pretty good experience in handling pharmaceutical traffic and charters. So we are actually busy reaching out forwarding agents to airlines to discuss requirements, to let them know that Leipzig is also ready for the handling of those services, and to be sure that we can be the right partner once the distribution of those vaccines start.
Okay, very good. And Ken?
We are not ready. However, what we have done is reached out. There's a company literally 3 minutes off the airport by the name of PCI, and they specialize in the packaging, storing, and distribution of pharma. And they are a massive company with many buildings. They've just, for example, 2 years ago finished adding more temperature-controlled facilities. One of the things they do is they're involved a lot in drug tests rollouts. So that stuff has to go out around the world from here, from Rockford, and then it very often comes back, or whatever comes back right here to Rockford to them. So what we have done is we've begun to engage with them. We've actually been engaging with them on and off over the last several years in the hope that something would come in our direction. We have now begun to re-engage with them. I think we're a little late on that, but they're showing great interest in being able to help out. But in terms of on-airport stuff right now, we are just overwhelmed with the general not overwhelmed. We're actually overjoyed, would be more accurate, with the general demand for cargo. In terms of the absolute specifics for that, we see that as perhaps, hopefully, not a blown opportunity. Now, I do know, I read somewhere that UPS has been engaged with to come up with a plan for the distribution of the vaccine when it becomes available. I doubt that they're the only one, but that is a company that's certainly capable of doing this sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's enormous. I read somewhere that even half the requirement would take 8,000 freighter loads.
No kidding.
Yeah, obviously globally,
but
you know,
there is still the uncertainty of which trade lanes there are. Oh, sorry, my light went just off. That means the battery is not there anymore. Anyway, I hope you can still see.
Don't worry, my friend. There is a light at the end of the tunnel.
You look better in the dark.
Side of Germany. We're shutting shop last round.
Put some euros back in the meter, Mario.
Where was I? In regards to trade lanes, there's a big uncertainty, although people say that, or I've seen reports that 2/3 of production is going to be in Europe. Also, the times, it's really uncertain. But to many forwarders who I talked to, they're already prepared, and they've taken this into consideration. And I think they will look at airports like us. And we have temperature controlled warehouse. We're GDP and CRV certified. And in regards of short distance from the ramp to the aircraft, it's similar to Rockford. Now the aircraft's in front of the shed. There's the warehouse. We've got the temperature control unit inside and trucking docks on the other side. So for us, it's just important to understand a little bit more of forwarding agents and brokers' plans, also airlines, ensuring that they have us on the map as well. But I think it'll need all of our airports to process those loads.
Yeah.
So similar to the PPE shipments, it will be busy for all of us. So, but in this case, you will need airports which can handle pharmaceuticals and which have a solution for that, and we definitely do.
100%. Now, another word that's been bandied around for God knows how long, but we're very late and we're very behind. Digitization. So actually bringing, there you go, spotlight's back on you, Mary.
I know. I'll put some money in there.
That's it. So digitization. Okay, so it's something that's been spoken about a long time now. One of the things that I find amazing, and I don't want to sound like an ongoing record that doesn't get turned off, but for years, and people have come in the industry, out of the industry, and they're still talking about, paperless and no need for the airway bill, etc., the documentation. Now, if ever there's an opportunity to change, it's now because of the hygiene argument with regard to the crisis.
True.
Why on earth we are handling so many documents at remote control posts, then on reception, then when it gets handed over, then throughout the export office, etc., and back in again? Why in God's name are we doing that? Whether it's because you have to have blue ink or brown ink or black ink, surely beat the heavens now is the time to actually bring the drawbridge down and say no more physical paperwork is required on a certain date. Now, that needs to come from representative bodies who have got the fear of upsetting some parts of the community, but airports could do that. What do you think?
I'd like to begin a little bit on this one, if you don't mind. Well, so first of all, I'm in agreement with you 100%, Chris. I actually, believe it or not, in the 1980s, Chris, I gave a talk on this, decrying the fact that we were, and this is just when the internet was really beginning, at the end of the 90s, early 90s, where, well, email was beginning to, AOL, etc. And we could communicate with each other around the world, but airlines couldn't communicate between themselves and other airlines and so on. They had the big old computers. Anyway, so to one degree or another, one of the things I think we as an industry have sort of failed on is this. We have tried with smaller companies in general to develop a system that everyone can use. And how typically is that developed? Well, first of all, we give that system to one major forwarder, and it works between that one major forwarder and one particular airline. That's how it used to go. Yeah. But slowly but surely, more and more people are able to communicate, and it is getting better and better. But do you remember Cargo 2000?
Yeah,
Cargo 2000 was when we were going to be paper free. Yeah. Cargo 2000, here we are, 2020. So I actually think, for example, that the idea of having developed an end-to-end system, completely end-to-end and completely secure, which is part of the issue, requires the power of some massive companies. I don't think we as an industry can put the sort of money into the proper development of this, where it could be truly global and be utilized by the delivery guys on the bicycles with their iPhones, all the way to the major forwarders, airlines, and companies. So I actually think that the most likely thing to work would be to have a major company, a Google, a Microsoft, an Amazon, their computer system, do that and charge on a per airway bill basis. In other words, we don't put all that money into development, but we have to pay as we go in there. That I see as a potential potential to solve it. They also have the sort of political clout to force, for example, certain U.S. customs organizations to accept that you don't have paper. And I think that's where a lot of those problems come in.
Yep, and the hygiene argument may well be the catalyst to make something happen that nobody else was able to in the last 20 plus years. So agreed. All right, Mario?
I agree with that, what Ken said. Also remember, I left the industry for 7.5 years, and I came back and asked the question in my interview, are you kind of concerned that I'm not really 100% familiar with all the regulation and whatever happened in our industry in terms of documentation? And the reply was, well, we're still sending lots of words around the world. We still have that area bill. And the first time I went back in the office and I saw the area bills, I thought, shoot, it's like 20 years back. Yeah. On the other hand, I think integrators have shown the way how to use the technology. E-commerce companies handling e-commerce to import them into the EU, for example, they're tech data companies, to be honest, and use their platforms to process all the handling processes. I think the big challenge is everything's really fragmented. So where do you start, and how many services would you like to include? And do you just limit it to a certain ecosystem, i.e. airports? Can certain airports work together? It's really a strange thing because during the 7.5 years when I didn't work for the air cargo industry, I worked for an information technology company. And of course, it was all technology, big technology items there, no paper. And then coming back to the air freight industry, I was really surprised that we hadn't really moved on. But it's very fragmented at the same time. So that's why I see the challenge. Yeah, so maybe Ken's right. You only need a huge player
Yeah.
Question is, does it have to be an American player? But maybe it's only there is an American player who can do that. I don't know.
But it's crazy. I think
I'm really afraid that in 5 years' time we still discuss the same thing there.
Well, let's hope not. But I think it's just the fact that people are so fearful of sharing data. And, you know, we've got blockchain, big data. We've got the capability to do it now. It's just a matter of people being a little bit more collaborative and confident and sharing the data, which is basically, you know, it's everybody's. It's
true.
Right, guys. Now we're getting near to the end of the session. So what I'd like to do now, which we're doing with everybody who comes on and attends the digital event, is I'd like to ask both of you, what 3 things would each of you do as leaders and from your organization's perspective, what 3 things would you do that would support the collaboration and initiatives that are necessary to do things better and to sustain and make sure that the business continues in a very agile and resilient manner? So Mario, let me start with you. What 3 things would you put down on that list?
Like you mentioned before, the search of PPE charters or shipments, and our client forwarding agents also looking at other airports, looking at cargo-focused airports, sort of an eye-opener. And a lot of things changed, especially here in Europe or in Germany around that time. Things changed around the approval process for non-EU charters by non-EU airlines. Our authorities were really, really flexible. And our colleagues from the Benelux will tell you, well, they're flexible all the time over there. But from a German perspective, I really like that approach. And that really helped to process those charters. So this is something we're pushing through our associations that we have in Germany, to keep that communication up with the authorities. But also what really helped was that more non-EU airlines could actually enter the German market for these shipments as well. So that was an easier process and faster approval. What was excellent as well, and that wasn't only at Leipzig Halle Airport, how the air cargo community communicated even better or collaborated in a much better way, make the supply chain a lot more transparent. And we have a really interesting example. We saw quite a few companies who were new kids on the block when it came to importing PPE shipments, but had no idea about the logistics process. So in that sense, we were able to share expertise and put them in touch with the right partners for the logistical process outside of our scope. So we would do the ground handling, we can deal with airlines, but forwarding agents, of course, we do the trucking, maybe some sort of EU customs clearance. And we were in that sense, I'm so sorry about the light, we were in that sense some sort of consultant or help or enabler. So this is something which I think us and other airports could do even much more. To a bigger extent, to also enable newcomers to come into air freight and process cargo.
And one of the things you touched on there, I think there's a new breed of organisations and awareness, you know, to start bringing in their own charters and looking how to charter the business for themselves. So that's going to be a new dimension as well, I think.
Exactly. That's really interesting. And change is a real disruptor for all of us, but it's very exciting. It may even lead to digitalization. You never know. But I think what's also very important, and that's something we started before the COVID crisis, we're very proud of our cooperations with other airports, such as Rockford, Chicago Rockford International. And we exchange views in many topics, many areas. We have some similarities in regards to integrators, but we also share experience in you know, for example, handling pharmaceutical items, and also real estate development. So we need to and we want to continue this route.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you for that, Mario. And Ken, 3 things for yourself.
Yeah, well, you know, let's take RFD and LEJ just to start with as part of our support of the whole system. It was, once we started getting together, we really have worked well, one with it. And an example of it working for the Leipzig Halle airport was, we who had already had Amazon for quite some time here in Rockford knew that they were looking in Europe for a major hub. We also knew that they were not, that Leipzig was not on their radar.
Yeah.
And because we had been over to visit with the whole crew over there, all of them, we realized what a spectacular airport it was, and how close it was to so many other places.
Yeah.
And we did, and in particular, there's one particular guy here in our office that deals on a daily basis with Amazon, and he was able to talk Amazon into coming to meet with LEJ executives at the Munich air cargo thing, with the result being that sure enough, Amazon is, am I allowed to say that?
I'm sure you touched on it already anyway.
Yeah, well, it's too late now.
Didn't come from
well,
me.
Amazon is already flying into Leipzig, and I think there are more things happening in that area for Leipzig. On the other hand, we've received introductions from Mario to air freight forwarders that are interested in flying to Rockford from Germany, as opposed to O'Hare. In other words, they need to come into the Midwest, and Rockford, because of Andre, that we are on the map with some of those forwarders.
Okay, so two-way promotion. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's another case, Greenville, Spartanburg, where Senator flies into. When they got their Senator flight years ago, they had nobody in the whole airport that had any experience with cargo, and they reached out to me because I had run into them at some of the shows and so on, and I guided them through the parts of how to buy, how to train, who to see, who to talk to, how to gather the expertise around you, and so on. Well, this year, Senator decided to fly into RFD.
Yeah.
And who did we need help from? Well, we needed it from all the guys at GSP who had been through the ringer to get things correct for Senator, and actually have been a tremendous assistance to us in making, or really it's as opposed to the airport, but through the airport to Emery, the handling agent, to get them up and running, and even brought some of the Emery people down to be trained in GSP.
Yeah.
So there's just two examples of cooperation. But the other part, one final one, is we now find ourselves in a lot closer contact with TSA, and with US Customs, and also with the trucking industry. And you know, without trucks, there is no air freight, and the importance of them and the right equipment being in the right place at the right time. So I have come from an air cargo background, and I've been able to organize for those airlines flying in here, trucking, to get them to get the right equipment here at the right time, at the right price, and get it. So it's beyond what you would normally think of as an airport doing.
Yeah.
But I've worked on all aspects of the ground operation for many of the carriers that have come in here on a sporadic basis. So we just want to get rid of red tape, to make it easy. You make a call, you want to come in, try and give us more than 4 hours notice, but you give us a call, we're ready for you when you get in, and we'll get your freight moved. And that's that's our part of the whole thing, to make it easy, make it get in 24/7, no slot restrictions, a la Mario here and LEJ.
Yep. No, it's making it attractive. Yep. Now, Mario, if I can ask you, please, what 3 things would you like to see coming from the community or the supply chain to make your lives easier or more effective?
Mm-hmm. To be honest, I would like that openness for different airports, that open mind to use other airports. Would like that to continue. In Germany, typically the center of our consolidated cargo is Frankfurt, of course, and at the time it was really driven. Well, it's historically built up like that, same as in the UK with Heathrow.
Yeah.
And especially during the times when there were passenger flights, they could use belly cargo 50% and cargo freighters as well, which is great, and it'll always be there. But it's fair to say that airports such as Frankfurt can reach their limits in terms of performance at times.
Yeah.
And that's typically the point when forwarding agents will look at other airports as well, cargo-minded airports. Now, during the pandemic, there have been quite a few brokers, quite a few forwarding agents who came out to Leipzig Halle Airport and said, wow, we didn't realize that was possible in Leipzig Halle Airport, and we wish we had committed more flights to you guys. So just continue talking to us when we approach them, having that open mind to use other airports as well, to spread out their operations a little bit and make use of the beauty that we have in Germany and in Europe of a whole lot of different platforms and airports that are there for them to service.
Yeah. Okay. And any other points?
Maybe Ken can pitch in, and I'll continue after that.
All right. Yeah. Very good. Ken, what would you like to see happen from the community or supply chain?
I'd like them all to call my boss and recommend that I get a raise and backdated 6 months.
Yeah,
that's what I'd like to
that's
see.
an easy one, Ken. Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen, my friend. Yeah.
So, you know, the industry, I see some real advances in the industry in the following ways, as one example. So you have IATA, you have TIACA, you have over here the Air Freight Forwarders Association, which, by the way, I'm more impressed with that association than most. Why? Because they have an executive director that finds himself at the table in Washington with the lawmakers before the laws are passed. He's terrific. And
I want to give him a shout out. You want to name him?
Yeah, you know, I was trying to think of his name as I was talking. He's an old friend of mine, and it won't come. Thanks very much, Chris. So, but I will.
Sorry, sir.
Look it up. I'm going to look it up while I'm talking to you.
No, don't worry.
I know him well, and I can't believe it. But he's brilliant, and
he's gonna love you, Ken.
Yeah, I know. It's just I'm having a glitch. But
don't worry,
my glitch is. So, well, I'm looking while I'm talking to you. So I see the industry in general beginning to try and use their influence more politically. Yeah. And it's about time. Yeah. But I really do see, you know, like TIACA and IATA coming together to do things. The Air Freight Forwarders Association, and I think ICAO is beginning to move in that direction. So what happens is, you know, we need to speak with one voice. Yeah. We need to be able to make the demands that we you know, that we can get. I have to find this. I'm going to die. I can't find it. He's going to kill me now. Anyway.
You'll never know.
You'll be able to dine out on that one.
You know what's going to happen? I'm going to hang up and that name is going to come to me and I'm going to be swearing big time. Anyway, so yeah. So I really do see them getting better and better. What I felt a little bit less of in the COVID thing was, and I don't mean this as a big small criticism. I don't think that they were as bold in making their presence known to their own members. Yeah, like IATA, you know, nobody should get on a plane without a mask. Period. At the beginning. Yeah, you know, before, you know, when just get it done, do the things that would have been safe for the safety. Even if we'd found out later masks didn't matter, it was pretty obvious they did.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you.
So,
I agree with you.
So I do think in some ways we haven't, it's not that we don't have good leaders in there. It's just that I'm not certain that the confidence is there to say, okay, we've got to go. We got to do this. We got to do it now. Anyway, I'm an old geezer, so I can say all these things because I don't care anymore.
That's the best thing, Ken, and that's what we need to do, mate. Old guys rule. Very good, son. Listen, lads,
Excellent.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. We've come to the end of the time. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
like I say, Cargo has got a much higher profile now, and justly so. And with guys like you looking after the business there and making Cargo, the voice of Cargo, come out loud and proud. Great stuff. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris.
much.
Can you reach out to me sometime later by email or something?
I will indeed. I will indeed. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to get your contacts. Okay. Thanks.
Cheers,
bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right. We've got a little announcement to make, and it's after the conclusion of the exercise. Poor old Mario is still in the dark. He hasn't got enough money to eat her.
No more money.
And Ken has remembered somebody that he gave a big shout out to. So, Ken, who's this superstar who's influenced?
It was Brandon Freed. He's the chief executive of the Air Freight Forwarders Association. He's done a spectacular job for that, for the air freight forwarding industry, and has been, I think, a leader in helping IATA, TIACA, and others become more engaged from a governmental perspective. So I apologize to Brandon for not getting it the first time.
So there you go, Brandon. You made such a big impact. None of us could remember your name, but we do now and we won't forget it. Well done, sir.